Hello learners, you're most welcome. This is still Education Online and I am teacher Olonya Agnes Okot. I'm the teacher of English language. Today, I want us to continue looking at what I taught you previously. Last time we looked at how to make a formal speech. Even today, this lesson still is meant for Senior 3 and Senior 4. We are going to continue to look at the remaining elements of the speech which I told you about. You remember? Last time I told you any formal speech is having about 3 elements. And these are 1. The format. 2. We said number 2 was content. I went on to give you the last format, which is rather the last element, which is the language. Language of a formal speech. Therefore, I want us today to look at the language of a formal speech. You remember last time we saw all about format of a formal speech. We said format is just the structure or the form of the formal speech. We saw very many, about 6 of them. We started by heading, then we came and looked at the protocol. We also saw what we call self-introduction. We saw greetings, and we even went ahead to see introduction of the topics when you're making a speech or when you're writing it. Then we did not end there. We went ahead to say that for a formal speech to be complete in the format, there must be what we call conclusion. But today, away with that, we are not going to dwell on the format. We will come and look at number 3, which is the language of a speech. The language of a speech. Now, this language of a speech is generally the vocabulary used, or what are these aspects that we see when we are looking at a speech or when we are making a speech, even when we are writing it down. Now, you can go smartly under the main topic, making a formal speech, and write our subtopic, which is the language of a formal speech. Write it down. You can write it in capital. The language, we're saying the language. The language of a formal speech. Of a formal speech. Of a formal speech. Right. That is the subtopic of today under making a formal speech. Let us begin to look at this one by one. What are these that we always consider when we are talking about the language of a formal speech? Number 1, the tense. The tense. Here we will look at the tense. Number 1 is the tense. In your sentences or in the terms that you use to make a speech, you are mainly restricted to use present simple tense or the present tenses. It may not be present simple, but must be present tenses mainly. But I am saying it is not only the present tenses. Even you can use past tense. You have to use past tense if at all you are talking or you are referring to a flashback, something that happened many times ago or years and even months ago. Therefore, you'll be flashing back or remembering what happened in the past. For instance, you can begin making a speech like, let us use this same example which we used last time about the head girl making a speech during the celebration or the independence celebration. Here we expect this head girl to go real and use present tense like, I want to encourage you to have the spirit of sacrifice the way our former freedom fighters fought for us to bring South Sudan to the level where we are right now. Here she's still only using present tenses. But if she wants to allude to what happened in the past during the liberation struggle, and if that speaker wants to refer to some people who fought in the liberation struggle, she must now go and use the past tense. For instance, she can say, I want to recognize the current president of South Sudan because he fought in the bush with the late Dr. John Garang. So you cannot say he fight in the bush. Do you see how the terms will now change? Because she is giving a flashback of how the current president, President Kiir, fought together with the late Dr. John Garang in the bush during the liberation struggle. So you have to be very clear here. Here we are saying mainly present tenses. Present tense or tenses in that case. Present tenses because it can be present simple, present continuous, or any other form of present. Then we are saying but past tense. But past tense when narrating a flashback. Narrating a flashback. Flashback is just past events. So flashbacks just past events. You saw how I gave you. Then number 2, under language of a formal speech is the use of polite expression. The use of polite expression. Number 2, the use of polite expression. Polite expression. Here, my dear learners of Senior 3 and 4, you have to be very polite when writing a speech or even when making an oral speech, because your audience may not be pleased with you if you use vulgar words. For instance, even when you are warning people, you have to look for the synonym of the root word or of the vulgar word. For instance, if you can use words like, or expressions like, I urge you, I urge you, I urge you, I request, which is still even the synonym of I urge you, I request you, I appeal to you, I appeal to you. Words like appeal, request, words like please. These are what we call polite expression. Don't say you must fight hard the way the late Dr. John Garang and the current president Kiir did during the liberation struggle. But you can only say, I urge you, my dear ladies and gentlemen, the citizens of South Sudan, you have to fight hard for us to work according to the liberation agenda. So you don't need to be rude when you're speaking to people or when you're writing a formal speech. These are just some examples, few examples of polite expression. But all in all, I beg you, be very polite. That is number 2. Then let us see number 3 under language of a formal speech. We have what we call formal expression. Number 2 was polite expression. Now we're talking about formal expression. Formal expression. Formal expression. Now, what are these formal expressions? Here, we are referring to words like ladies and gentlemen. We are referring to formal greeting instead of using informal words. For instance, let me give you some of the informal words. Then I will show you how to make them formal in nature. Look at some of these words under informal. Look at this. There are some expressions which are not good. Like guys, like dudes, chicks, like maybe you can even say people. And others like, how are you? How are you? Some of these words or expressions, they are correct English, but they are informal in nature. We call them informal because they are not used in the written aspects of a piece of work. For instance, instead of referring to your audience as guys, you can just call them ladies and gentlemen They will be very pleased if you refer to them in this way. Don't say, how are you guys? Or good afternoon guys. They will not like it in that case because you don't know the age group of the people. Sometimes they may not be of your caliber, first of all. Then instead of saying the dudes, all the dudes who are here, referring to gentlemen, instead you should say gentlemen instead of saying dudes. Gentlemen. Then instead of referring to ladies as women or even chicks, you better say ladies. Instead of saying the people of South Sudan, you can just say, my dear audience. You can even say, my dear audience. Audience mean listeners, mean the people who are gathered there. I told you these words are correct, but the problem is informality, which is not accepted. Then how are you? I told you when we were looking at format in the previous lesson that you rather say good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Greet according to time. Use time. Use time instead to greet people. Then here women, I told you, you can just call them ladies. They will feel pleased. This is what we call formal expression under the language of a formal speech. Remember, everywhere at the beginning there is the word formal speech. Somewhere here in the subheading there is language of a formal speech. Therefore, you have no right to use informal language. Everywhere you must remain formal. That was our number 3. My dear learners, let us look at number 4. what do we consider under language? We're going to look at vernacular, the use of vernacular. That is number 4. The use of vernacular. The use of, and vernacular is spelled as V-E, not V-A. V-E-R-N-A-C-U-L-A. Vernacular. This one is the use of the local language. You remember previously we were looking at how to record a formal minute, and I warned you that using vernacular is a crime in English language. If at all you're writing in English, maintain that. If you're writing in another language like Arabic, maintain that. Don't bring a foreign word into your writing. Now here, it is a little bit different. I'm saying when you're making a speech, you are not totally discouraged from using vernacular. Vernacular can be good and bad. Now, see how it can be good. When you're using vernacular in the formal speech, that means you are trying to identify yourself with the audience. But the vernacular here should be the one which is known by 90% of the audience. For instance, if it is South Sudan situation, what is the binding language here? In this case, we are talking of Arabic language. Arabic is understood largely by the people of South Sudan. Many people, although some do not. But now here, still you are tasked to interpret. If at all you have to use some few Arabic words. And remember, the vernacular which it is accepted for you to use must be words which are common, not very difficult words. For instance, if it is South Sudan situation, you can use words like salam. Like salam. You can use words like salam. And quote it please, because it is not English words. Now, in bracket or somewhere, you can write to interpret this salam as peace. That means even if it is in the spoken or the oral speech, you have to say, my dear ladies and gentlemen, I urge you today to embrace salam. Now, if you have spoken like this, many people will know you're talking about peace. Then even you can go ahead by saying, let us embrace this salam, the peace. Or even when you're greeting them and you're concluding your speech, you can say, Sukron Sedit or Sukron Zezilian. Thank you very much. May the peace be with you, or let the salam be with you. Now, in this case, you would have used the vernacular but interpreted it. Be very careful when you're using vernacular here. But I want now to discourage you, my dear Senior 3 and 4. If you will not be able to interpret the vernacular, don't use it. Avoid it. Just write it in English and say, today we want to work for peace. That is all. Don't bother yourself with salam, this and that, any other foreign word. Just say Asante Sana, even when you don't know the meaning, and even the listeners, they don't know. That was our number 4. But the language of a speech is not that small. It is very large. There is another part of the language which we call punctuations. It's very big and vast. Now, if you don't know how to punctuate your work, it will alter the meaning. You will distort the meaning of your speech. Our number 5 is punctuation used. Punctuations. Here, my dear learners, punctuations symbols must be observed. These are just symbols that we use when we are writing or even when we are speaking. Now, if it is the written form, if you want to ask a question to the audience, why don't you use a question mark? If it is question, use question mark. use question marks for interrogative. For interrogative. Interrogative. For interrogatives. Interrogatives just mean question. For instance, you can say, when will we put into practice our liberation agenda? Then if I've not seen any question mark, then I will regard that one as wrongly written question. Not only question marks, you can also use full stop. Full stop. Now when you're using full stop, in English language or in any human grammar, it means you have ended the sentence. Please put a full stop to show to the teachers, or if it is written, that you have put a full stop. If you're speaking, then you have to rest deeply. Not this time short rest like a comma. You have to rest deeply and continue to speak. That's what we call the use of full stop. Without someone seeing your written work, will know that there was a full stop. That's why the speaker took long to pick from there. We also have the sister of full stop. It's called comma. Comma. Now in the comma here, comma is the friend or the sister of full stop. It helps you to rest a bit before you proceed with your next point, or before you connect part of that sentence to the other part. So this one is for a break. Comma is for a break, for a rest or break. If you want to break or rest a bit, use a comma and connect from there. Not only these ones under punctuation, you can also use hyphens, or you hyphenate some of your words. Hyphens to show maybe a compound nouns and any other, even sometimes prefixes and suffixes. So you should be using hyphen in that case, plus any other punctuation mark like quotations. If you want to quote, for instance, when you're making a speech, you have the right even to quote from some books or from somewhere. So you have to use quotation marks. Apart from quotation marks, you can also use dashes or even brackets. And even when we're using this vernacular, you can quote, use quotation marks. So you see how punctuation is paramount in the language of a formal speech. These are just some few examples of punctuations that you may use when you are writing a speech, or in that case a formal speech. Let us also look at another part of the language of a formal speech. This time we're going to look at paragraph development. Paragraph development. It is our number 6. Paragraph development is our number 6. My dear learners of senior 3 and 4, speech making is one of the functional writing that uses paragraph. Unlike minutes or even curriculum vitae, where you may break your words or your work, you number them, do anything when you like, but here we are very strict in paragraphing. All your points, especially in the development of the content, must be paragraphed. And here I am talking about British Standard Paragraph. British Standard Paragraph. Let me show you how you should write your paragraph. Our number 6 under language is paragraph development. Paragraph development. paragraph development, and must be British standard. You can even put it in bracket here. British standard. Now, how does a British standard paragraph looks like? This is how it looks like. If this is your margin, this red line is the margin of your book or paper where you're writing, then you have to indent some centimeters from the margin and start to write your paragraph from somewhere here. Don't start the paragraph from here. Now you have to write all what you want from here. When you have finished this one line from the margin here, leave some gap here, and you start the second line. My dear learners, must now start from the margin in this way until the end, coming downwards until when you have finished all your writing. Assume that you have about 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. This is how it should look up to the end. By the way, this one will come up to here also, up to the margin, up to the margin, up to the margin. Right. Now let us assume you don't have just one paragraph. In the second paragraph, this is what you will do. You will come down here and approximate this line and start the second paragraph from here till the end. Then your second line still will come here. Let's assume this time you have about 5 lines, which will go up to the margin. By the way, here you have no problem, this side. Right up to the margin, but avoid breakage of words. Till here. Till the end. So all this line must go up to the end. So you will have 1, 2 paragraph until the end. Even if you have 10 paragraphs, must be in this way. But there is what we call American Standard Paragraph, which is correct but informal in our case. This is how American Standard look like. They always write it like this. They start immediately from the margin up to the end. Up to the end. And they assume this is one paragraph. They will skip one line or even 2. They start another paragraph from the margin. This is how the American Standard looks like. Now, I am condemning this one because in English, line skipping, first of all, is called disjointedness, and it is punishable by examiners, especially when you are already in senior 3 and 4. Anytime you will sit for national examination, then your marks is deducted because of using American Standard Paragraph. Never skip line. This is what we call line skipping. Line skipping. Don't say line jumping. That is direct translation, which we are going to talk about it later. Line skipping is a crime in English language. We assume, for us examiners, we assume you wanted to write something but you forgot. Therefore, you decided to skip and say, maybe I'll come back and write. So you will be punished, my friend. You're going to be punished, I tell you. Be very careful. Now, this is what we call paragraph development. Oftentimes, with the experience I've got working with National Examination Council of South Sudan as a senior examiner, many people ask me, Madam, how many lines or words should I write in a paragraph? Here, I'm telling you, there is no fixed lines or words, but a paragraph should not be too short, not too long. Approximately, you can write something of 5, 6 to 8 lines, which are reasonable, by the way. should not be 1 or 2 lines only. So not too short and not too long. That is the order of the day. And remember, for us, when we are counting words, number of words here, remember we count words. We always give you, under this section, we say from 250 to 300 words. But still, we don't count number of lines, we count words, and we are always fair here. Let us go and look at number 7. Let us go and look at number 7, which may be our last or second last under language use or language development. Here, we are talking about spellings. Number 7, we are talking about spellings. In our number 7, write the word spelling in number 7. Number 7 here, spelling. Spelling. Right. This is the most controversial issue in writing. That's why previously, you remember I taught you spelling errors and commonly misspelled word, because I was preparing you for this kind of writing. If you're not comfortable with the spelling of a word, I beg you to use the synonym of that word, another way of calling it. For instance, look at the word to spoil. To spoil. It is very simple to write, not so? But some of you will want to go and say to sabotage. To sabotage. To sabotage. Now, if you go and write the spelling of the word sabotage wrongly, which still means to spoil something or to distort, you would have distorted the meaning of the whole paragraph or the whole word or the whole sentence. Therefore, I appeal to you to use simple words. Don't be ambiguous for nothing. Don't be too pompous for nothing. Use words which you are comfortable to spell. If you want to say, my dear friends and fellow freedom fighters, just write the word friends. But if you know the spelling of the word comrades, why don't you refer to them in that way? It is better. And remember these ex-soldiers or the former fighters. When you call them comrades, they feel so pleased. But if you don't know the spelling, don't bother yourself. Just write friends or colleagues instead of comrades. Don't bother yourself by saying comrades when you cannot even spell it. That is what we call spelling in making a formal speech. These are just few examples of what we call the spelling. Now the last one is what is connected to this spelling is number 8. Number 8. We call it ambiguity. Ambiguity. Ambiguity, my dear learners, is confusing people or making something unclear when you are vague. Vagueness. Vagueness is what we call ambiguity. When something is not clear. Not clear. This is what we call ambiguous expression. Don't begin to say, today is the day of tranquility. Even when you don't know the meaning of the word tranquility, yet it just means peace and calm. So if you don't know, never bother yourself. I've ever seen many speakers embarrassing themselves by using words or expression which they themselves do not understand the meaning. So that's what we call ambiguity. Be simple. In other words, here I'm calling for simplicity. Don't be ambiguous, be clear and simple. Brief in that case. Thank you so much. I believe with this, you will not make a lot of errors when it comes to language of a speech. With this, we have come to the end of this lesson. Next time when I come back, I will teach you how to develop now the content or the body of a formal speech using the format and the language. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye for today.